long, long ago, in the warm and fertile lands of Tamil Nadu, beside the sacred river Kavari, there lived one of the most powerful dynasties of South India, the mighty Cholas. Their capital, Thanjavur, was a place of temples, warriors, and endless fields of rice that swayed like the sea when the wind touched them. It was here, in the year 947 CE, that a child was born into the royal family. His name was Arulmozhivarman, a name that meant the Blessed One, whose words are like nectar. From the very beginning, the boy was different. Unlike other princes who loved only games and play, Arulmozhivarman was thoughtful. He would often sit under the shade of ancient banyan trees, listening to the songs of birds, or watching the river flow, as if he was trying to understand the secrets of the world. The people of Thanjavur whispered that this child carried a divine spark. His eyes shone with curiosity. His heart was soft with kindness, and yet, inside him burned the fire of courage. As he grew, he learned the arts of war, sword fighting, archery, horse riding, and naval skills. But he also learned the deeper values of life: justice, compassion, and respect for the divine. Priests taught him sacred scriptures, while seasoned generals trained him in strategy. The land around him, however, was not always peaceful. Rival kingdoms like the Pandyas and Cheras often fought against the Cholas. Beyond the seas, distant islands and kingdoms waited like treasures yet to be discovered. And so, young Arulmozhivarman grew up in a world of both beauty and danger. He was the hope of his family, the dream of his people, and unknowingly, he was destined to become one of the greatest rulers India had ever seen. As night fell over Thanjavur, the little boy would lie on the terrace of the palace, gazing at the moon. Perhaps, in his heart, he already knew that one day his name would shine as bright as the stars above. Years passed, and little Arulmozhivarman grew into a strong young prince. He was admired by the people and respected by the soldiers, but destiny, as always, had its own tests. The Chola kingdom, though powerful, was troubled. Dark clouds gathered over the royal palace when tragedy struck. Arulmozhivarman's elder brother, Aditya Karakolan, the crown prince, was suddenly killed under mysterious circumstances. Some whispered it was a political conspiracy. Others said it was revenge by enemies of the Cholas. The loss shook the entire empire. Ministers, generals, and the common people were filled with fear. Who would now protect the throne? Who would lead the Cholas against their rivals? For a time, the kingdom seemed unstable, as if a mighty ship was caught in a storm. Enemies waited at the borders. The Pandyas sharpened their swords. The Cheras watched with hungry eyes, and even faraway powers sensed weakness. And yet, in the midst of this storm, the eyes of the people turned toward one man, the calm, brave, and wise Arulmozhivarman. Though he was not the eldest, though he had not been destined at first to be king, destiny now called him in the great coronation hall of Thanjavur. Filled with the fragrance of sandalwood and the sound of conch shells, Arulmozhivarman was crowned Raja Chola. His forehead was marked with holy ash, golden ornaments shone on his chest, and the voices of priests blessed him as the new protector of the Chola throne. But becoming king was only the beginning. Before him lay great challenges: to heal the wounds of the kingdom, to unite his people, and to defend the Chola Empire against powerful rivals. That night, as he stood on the balcony of his palace, watching the moon bathe the Kavari River in silver light, Raja must have felt the weight of the crown. Yet, within his heart, he whispered a promise. I will not only protect this kingdom, I will make it greater than ever before. And so began the journey of a king who would transform history. The throne of the Cholas was no ordinary seat. It was a seat of fire, tested by enemies, watched by friends, and blessed by the gods. When Raja Chola I took this throne, he knew that courage alone was not enough. He needed wisdom, strategy, and the strength of his people. The first thing the young king did was bring peace within his land. He called together the nobles, the ministers, and the generals. His voice was steady, calm, and clear. He promised fairness, justice, and protection. Slowly, the people's fear began to fade, replaced by trust. He reformed the administration. Villages were given power to manage their own affairs. Farmers were encouraged to grow more, and soldiers were trained with discipline. The kingdom became like a grand orchestra, every part playing its role in harmony. But Raja knew peace at home meant nothing if the borders were weak, and so he marched against the kingdom's rivals. The Pandyas, proud and ancient enemies, were defeated. The Cheras, who ruled the lush lands of Kerala, were also subdued. Each victory was not just a conquest, but a message the Cholas had risen again. Yet, Raja was not just a warrior. He was a dreamer. He built strong forts, planned great temples, and improved trade with faraway lands. Ships from his ports carried spices, gems, and silk to distant kingdoms, while foreign merchants arrived with gold, horses, and strange treasures. Every step he took, every law he made, every battle he fought, was part of a larger vision. He was not just protecting the Chola throne, he was shaping a golden age. And in the evenings, when the day's work was done, the king would often sit by the river, watching the sun sink behind the palm trees. The sound of temple bells echoed in the air, and perhaps Raja thought of the future, of an empire so grand that even centuries later, his name would still be remembered. This was only the beginning. The Chola Empire was rising, and its glory was yet to shine. By now, Raja Chola had made his empire strong on land. The fields were fertile, the people were content, and the enemies nearby had bowed before the might of the Cholas. But Raja was not a king who only looked at what lay before his eyes. He dreamed of horizons far beyond. His gaze turned to the seas. The waves of the Bay of Bengal had always whispered stories of distant islands, rich lands, and powerful kingdoms across the waters. While many rulers feared the sea, Raja saw it as a Rodan endless highway that could carry the Cholas to glory. And so, he built one of the greatest naval forces India had ever seen. Strong ships, crafted from teak and other sturdy woods, were fitted with sails that caught the monsoon winds. Warriors trained not just on horseback or elephant back, but on the decks of these mighty vessels. With this navy, the Cholas set forth. They sailed across the waters, reaching the Maldives, where their banners fluttered proudly. They moved further, spreading Chola influence across the Indian Ocean trade routes. The king knew that the sea was not only about conquest, it was about trade, wealth, and connection. Ships carried spices, silk, and precious stones to faraway lands. In return came gold, rare horses, and exotic goods. The ports of the Cholas buzzed with life, with merchants speaking many languages, their ships rocking gently under the golden sun. The world began to notice. Foreign travelers wrote about the might of the Chola navy, about their fearless king who ruled not only the land but also the seas. For the first time, the Cholas were becoming not just a regional power, but a global one. And when night fell, the sailors of the Chola fleet would look up at the stars, guiding their ships across dark waters, knowing that behind them stood a king whose vision stretched as wide as the ocean itself. Raja Chola was no longer just the protector of his people, he was becoming the master of the seas. Even the greatest warriors, after battles are won and lands are secured, seek something higher, something that lasts beyond swords and crowns. For Raja Chola, that eternal dream was a temple so grand, so timeless, that it would carry his name through centuries. This dream became the Brihadiswar Temple, also known as the Big Temple of Thanjavur. Imagine the king standing before a wide stretch of land in Thanjavur, pointing with his hand and saying, "Here shall rise a monument for Lord Shiva, one that touches the sky." The work began. Thousands of sculptors, masons, and laborers gathered. Day after day, stone after stone, they built a temple that would become one of the greatest wonders of India. The temple's tower, or Vimana, rose higher and higher, over 200 feet tall. Legends say that a single block of granite weighing 80 tons was placed on its top, though no one truly knows how such a massive stone was lifted. Some whisper of hidden ramps stretching for miles, others of ingenious pulleys, all adding to the mystery. Inside, the walls came alive with paintings and carvings, stories of gods, kings, and celestial beings. The temple was not just a place of worship, it was a living library of art, architecture, and devotion. And at its heart stood the grand Shiva Lingam, tall, powerful, and serene, glowing in the soft light of lamps. Every prayer, every chant, every drumbeat inside the temple seemed to echo with the spirit of the Cholas. For Raja, this was more than stone and mortar. It was his offering to the divine, his message to the world, that faith and power could live together in harmony. When the temple was completed, the king walked barefoot into its sacred halls. Perhaps he felt humbled, perhaps proud, perhaps both. The people of his kingdom looked upon the temple and knew they were part of something eternal. Even today, more than 1,000 years later, the Brihadiswar Temple still stands, its shadow stretching across Thanjavur, whispering the name of the king who dared to dream so high. By the time the temple stood tall in Thanjavur, Raja Chola's fame had spread across the land. Yet, for this king, greatness was never still. Like a river that keeps flowing, his ambition carried him further and further. He looked to the south of India. The mighty Chera kingdom of Kerala, rich with spices and treasures of the western seas, became part of his vision. His armies marched, his navy sailed, and soon the Chola banners flew proudly over Kerala. But Raja was not done. His gaze shifted east, across the Bay of Bengal, towards distant kingdoms, Sri Lanka. Known then as Lanka, it was a land of wealth and beauty. The Chola fleet, strong and fearless, crossed the waters. Battles were fought, and victory was won. Parts of Sri Lanka came under Chola rule, making the empire stretch beyond the Indian mainland. In the north, too, he extended his influence. He formed alliances, defeated rivals, and step by step, the Chola lands grew vast. From the banks of the Kaveri River to the faraway shores of the Maldives, from the rich lands of Karnataka to the Emerald Isle of Lankaraja, Raja's empire was becoming one of the largest and most powerful in Indian history. But here was the beauty of his reign. It wasn't just about conquest. Wherever the Cholas ruled, Raja brought with him order, prosperity, and culture. Roads were built, irrigation improved, temples rose, and art flourished. Trade with foreign lands grew stronger, making his kingdom not only powerful, but also wealthy and respected. The world began to see the Cholas as more than warriors. They were visionaries who built bridges between cultures, across both land and sea. And in the stillness of the night, as the lamps flickered in Thanjavur, perhaps Raja himself would sit quietly, gazing at the stars, thinking of how far his kingdom had come, how much further it could still go. By now, Raja Chola was not just a king. He had become a legend in his own lifetime. His empire stretched wide, his navy ruled the seas, his people thrived in prosperity, and his temple touched the heavens. This was the golden age of the Cholas. Imagine the streets of Thanjavur, bustling markets where merchants sold silk, spices, and jewels, artisans carving delicate bronze idols of gods and goddesses, poets reciting verses in Tamil, dancers and musicians performing in temple courtyards, their movements echoing the rhythm of devotion. Trade flowed like a mighty river. Ships from the Chola ports carried goods across the Indian Ocean, reaching as far as China, Southeast Asia, and the Arabian lands. In return, foreign merchants brought silk, horses, and rare treasures, filling the empire with wealth. But what truly set this golden age apart was culture. Raja encouraged Tamil literature, preserving poems and stories in grand inscriptions. Sculptors perfected the art of creating Chola bronze statues of Natarasha, the dancing Shiva, so alive in form that even centuries later they leave us in awe. His people lived with a sense of pride. They weren't just subjects of a king, they were part of a civilization that was shining bright, reaching beyond boundaries and leaving footprints on the world stage. And through it all, Raja remained at the center, not only as a ruler with power, but as a guiding force who shaped his people's destiny. This golden glow of the Chola Empire was not just about wealth and art, it was about identity. It told the world, here is a land where devotion and duty, power and art, faith and ambition all live together in harmony. And as the sun set over the towering Brihadaswar temple, casting long shadows on Thanjavur's streets, the people knew they were living in a time that would be remembered forever. As the years passed, Raja Chola grew older. The mighty king who had once led armies, built temples, and expanded his empire, now spent more time in prayer, reflection, and guiding the next generation. His son, Rajendra Chola, was ready to inherit not just a kingdom, but a vision, a dream that his father had built. When the time finally came, Raja Chola left this world as peacefully as the setting sun slipping into the horizon. But, unlike the sun, his light never faded. It lived on in the stones of the Brihadaswar temple, in the inscriptions on copper plates, in the stories whispered by his people, and in the legacy carried forward by his son. Rajendra Chola would go on to expand the empire, even further, sailing across the seas to conquer lands as far as Southeast Asia. But every step he took carried the blessing and foundation of his father. Even today, more than 1,000 years later, when we stand before the towering temple at Thanjavur, or when we see the graceful Chola bronzes in museums across the world, we are reminded of Raja Chola. His name echoes not just in history books, but in the very soul of South India. He was more than a king. He was a builder, a dreamer, a protector of his people, and above all, a guiding star who showed how greatness could be achieved with vision, devotion, and courage. And so, under the quiet night sky, as we close our eyes and drift into dreams, we remember the story of Raja. Raja Chola is not just a tale of the past. It is a flame that still flickers, whispering softly. Greatness, when built with devotion, never dies. Centuries may have passed since the time of Raja Chola, but his presence still lingers, like a soft fragrance carried by the evening breeze. His empire may no longer stand, but his spirit breathes through every temple wall, every bronze sculpture, every poem written in Tamil that survived because of his vision. When travelers walk through the Brihadiswar temple today, they look up at its towering Vimana, rising almost 66 meters high, and they wonder, how did people 1,000 years ago build something so perfect, so eternal? The answer lies in the dream of one man, a king who believed that faith and determination could touch the heavens. Even beyond India, his name is remembered. In Sri Lanka, in Southeast Asia, echoes of Chola influence remain in art, language, and architecture. His ships carried not just goods, but also ideas and culture, leaving footprints across oceans. But perhaps the most precious legacy of Raja Chola is not his empire, nor his conquests. It is the lesson that true greatness is not measured by power alone, but by what we create, protect, and pass on to those who come after us. So tonight, as the stars shimmer above and the world grows quiet, we remember him, not as a distant ruler from history, but as a guiding light whose story still inspires courage, devotion, and hope. And in that gentle thought, we drift into sleep, carrying with us the whisper of his eternal name, Raja Chola, the king who touched eternity.